the Rugby Bits podcast, and we're here reviewing week 3 of the Rugby Championship, which saw the first clash between the Springboks and the All Blacks, an epic comeback 31-27 win for the Springboks, and Australia winning their first Rugby Championship game of the year so far, winning in Argentina, in a rain-drenched Argentina, 20 points to 90. I'm Thala. I am joined by Shaun today, and we're going to review these games that have happened this weekend. Shaun, how are you doing?
Hello, my man. I'm good. This weekend was chaos, absolute chaos. All the crazies come out, um, but you also get to learn something about the rugby laws. It was a good game of rugby. Yeah, it was. Sure, it was busy, bro, busy, but it was awesome. I mean, such a much anticipated game, and hosting the All Blacks and beating them like they beat us is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen the South Africa be at the opposite end of that sort of comeback win many times before.
Forever, yeah.
Um, yeah, let's jump straight into it. And I think the first question, probably the main question to ask is, Shaun, there's obviously a big difference where the first 60 minutes, that was clearly the All Blacks game. They could have, yeah, I think them winning that game by 10 or so points would have been well deserved for how they played in the first 60 minutes. But yeah, so what changed in the last 20 minutes that basically turned the game on its head?
Um, it's obvious that the bomb squad made a difference, but there was a little bit more there. It really so the first at the end of the first half. I was just I was a little bit sad because we really looked 14 points better. At least, I really thought we played well.
Mm.
I thought we defended well. We were just in a good place. We were dominating. We were game planning, but it's almost as if that these are the All Blacks feeling inside made the guys play a little bit within themselves with a little bit of nerves. And then probably that halftime talk and then being behind by so much really like kick things on. It was the bomb squad. It was also I think it was also that belief change that like we are better. Like we are better than them. We are not losing. Like this is frankly bullshit. And they kicked it on and did so well. Yeah, it was a very interesting turnaround though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, I mean, a lot of people say the bench or certain players, but I think it's a bit deeper than that. And
Yeah, yeah.
I think the big thing to note, I think, from the game is at a certain point, the Springboks were able to basically just camp in the All Blacks 22 and have the ball and obviously put pressure on them, and then the mistakes came. Um, and I think with those two tries that basically won the game for South Africa, um, it's interesting to see just how, like, number one, how the Springboks got themselves out of their 22, like from kickoffs or whatever the case is, to put themselves into the 22. So that was through, good kicking, especially from Williams and Famin Zulu and Fassi. They were kicking quite well. Then obviously forcing errors and penalties. The All Blacks had 14 penalties in the game, and that's obviously not going to be good enough for a test. And then they were able to just keep the ball and to convert pressure into points. In the second half, the Springboks had 62% possession and 71% territory. And in the first half, it was 52 possession for the All Blacks and 57 territory. So obviously, that was a big flip turn upside down of those stats.
Yeah, massive. Like even though we had 48% possession in the first half, I really thought we were better. Like we really looked good. We looked like it was going to come, and then it didn't. But we, through what has happened over the last 5 years, the guys have got that belief. Like we're so used to watching Ireland and the All Blacks play where you kind of know that they're going to score. Like they just go through the motions. It's a good and a bad thing, but it worked out for the Springboks. And then, yeah, we turned it around. It was good. I didn't realize we had so much possession, but once we started having that possession in the second half, we just killed them off. Like that was the reinforcement that the Springboks needed. Like they were like, we are better. That whole all that shit kind of goes through your head, and then you kind of kick it on a little bit. Then you have all the possession, and then you start getting on top of them. And I mean, sure, as a Springbok fan and as an any fan, how many times in our life have we watched a game where we are like 10, 11, 12, 13 points up against the All Blacks, but then you're just kind of fending them off for the last 20 minutes and you just know something's going to happen. And I have a funny feeling that for many more years to come, that could be the case, but I won't jump ahead too soon. It's the case now, and for this year, definitely.
So let's maybe go back to the start and just maybe talking about what the All Blacks did well in the first half. Good. I mean, the All Blacks started quite well. They were deep in the 22 basically for pretty much the whole 10 minutes, just attacking. And we must come back to this, but just kickoff receipts were just really bad from both teams, honestly. Like you kick it off, a team makes a mistake, and now you sort of camped in their 22 for the whole for 5 minutes. But the All Blacks then finally scored a try for rolling maul. Obviously, we'll talk about some of the questionable calls that were made, I think, throughout the game. But it was interesting that the All Blacks weren't doing too much in terms of, or not trying to be too expansive with their attack. They sort of had one-off runners from nine, and then when they saw the opportunity, there was interplay between Bowden and McKenzie, and they were trying those long bridge passes out wide to their wings to obviously try and catch out the rush defense. And it seemed like the Springboks were containing it up until Aphelia Fassi got his yellow card.
The defense in those first 7 minutes was outstanding. Even the tackle that got Fussy carded. Like Fussy, I think he made three tackles in the game. Two of them were try savers, like proper try savers. In the just a little bit earlier than that, I can't remember. It might have been him and Damon Delendi tackled someone out. But just
Mm.
the defense was good. The All Blacks seem very much like they're. We've spoken about it, and a lot of people have spoken about it. They look like they're almost like in between game plans and in between coaching kind of styles and stuff like that, where they're not looking as smooth and as fluid as they normally are. And then, like, it does kick in for them. Like, it was clearly the game plan was those long passes. The other game plan for me, which I think we're going to see a change in the Springboks, is that pump pass, because that try that they got, the pump pass nailed Creel and Colby. So that's clearly
Mm.
a tactic on their side. But yeah, they would definitely have wanted to score earlier, and probably as much as they got 7 points, I really felt like the Springboks were almost ahead in that opening 10 minutes, just purely on their defense and how they were keeping them out.
Yeah, so try scored off for rolling maul. And yeah, to the box credit, again, another Bosch kickoff or something happens during the course of trying to exit your 22. Box then also have their time in the 22, and then they get a try also from a pretty really nice line out move that leads to then a rolling maul, and then Bongi Mbonambi scores question mark. We can go back to that one later. But again, once the game got going after those first few scores and a bit of a weird start for the Springboks, I think you're right, Sean, that the Springboks then settled. But it seemed like, at least to me, that I think they were trying to do a bit too much playing, and maybe were trying to play at a pace that they even them they couldn't really sustain. And that's when the mistakes and the errors were happening. And the All Blacks, I don't think they did too much wrong in the first half, and I think they played pretty well. They had strong aggressive defense. Their scrum was holding on, if not, at least, not even putting a little bit of pressure sometimes on the box. But I think they only conceded one or two penalties throughout the game. Lineout was relatively functioning, and when they had the opportunities, they took them. So it just seemed like the Bucks were almost, yeah, they're trying to play almost too much at fast forward.
Yeah, it's the Springboks are actually also strangely enough in like another building phase, which is beautiful. I know Goldie on the breakdown they called him, and because he said at the end of the last World Cup, like, the Springboks can't grow anymore, like this is it for them, this is how they're going to be, and so they called him out in that big time, and he was like, well, I was talking about that group, this is a new group, but they've changed it up, they're doing stuff different, and yes, they. I mean, we saw it against Ireland in that first test. Like, it was very expansive and there were mistakes, and it almost looks like they were like being expansive but trying to keep it within themselves. They're kind of stuck between two spaces at the moment. But yeah, there were a couple of errors. Yeah, and I've said it 1,000 times, but geesh, we should have scored more tries in that first half.
um, in terms of just then, I think getting to halftime, I think, I mean, I want to shout out, and maybe we can start talking about some good performances from players. But really, I think there's a lot of moments where Jasper Visa really showed his value in the Springboks. And no, I mean, I think it was a non-typical Visa game. Like, obviously, he carried well, he carried strongly, he had the most carries for the box, only for 30 meters and one defender beaten, which is a very light day for Visa. But I think what made the difference was the two turnovers that he won. Him and Damien Delendi, who won three turnovers, and he had two in the first half. There were times where the All Blacks got the ball, they were looking threatening, and they were the ones that were able to obviously literally turn it over for the box and able to stop their momentum.
Yeah, there are a lot of people obviously saying that they want Low to start, and I really agree. I agree with you. I think Jasper had a pretty good game. I mean, they both only really played about 40 minutes, so that's clearly probably what's going to happen moving forward. Like there's a proper competition at eight now. I think Low's really playing well as well. But it was so good to see Visa back, like just to see him unleash again. He had a great first half. I was super super impressed with him. Um, but yeah, and Delaney, like the turnovers that they won, especially Damien's turnovers in the first half, those were massive, massive turnovers for us.
Mm. Yeah, and they were like momentum stopping turnovers when the All Blacks were
Yeah,
looking at, either coming out or breaking through, because there was some moments where Clark or Jordan was able to find space. Bowden Barrett created some breaks. Damon McKenzie, I think, probably had one of his best games, or at least his best game at 10. Um, they there was some threats, there was some opportunities there for the All Blacks to capitalize on. I mean, I think you talked about it earlier with the defense shooting up, but the Caleb Clark try, man, the first one, I should say, the one from the counter attack, it was sort of a few series of unfortunate events. Obviously, the turnover from the Dixon Visa misunderstanding, and then the All Blacks just did really well. I think with I, uh, New Zealand will always have players that are good at the catch and pass, and it be it their props or be it their fullbacks, everyone's really good. And yeah, I think Krill and Colby had to rush up. Maybe they saw they couldn't really do man and ball, so they tried to sort of get into the passing lanes and just to stop and get someone to step inside. But yeah, like you said, Sean, Krill fell for the double pump from McKenzie. Colby fell for the double pump from Lomax.
yeah. I was like initially when I first watched it, I was defending Creel and Colby on the decisions that they made because I thought it was turnover and they went and scored straight away. They actually set up a ruck. I know it was quick though,
Mm,
but they set up a ruck. The error I think is I think Creel could probably have gone for man there. I thought he had
mm,
enough advantage to. I thought he had enough meters to go for man, probably more for man there. Where I don't think Colby could have. I think he had to go for the intercept because he was never going to make the tackle on the man before the pass anyway. So he had to do that. So yeah, it was something that they've clearly worked on, and I think it's a good way of beating the defense. I mean, we've all done it in rugby and touch rugby where a man's going to shoot up, but you kind of just don't always have the balls to pump and pass. Like sometimes you pull it off early, even though you know it's coming. So yeah, there's that. Listen, Creel absolutely smokes McKenzie there. Then there's going to be no pumping and passing for the rest of the game. He's going to be just shifting it
mm.
on. So that's that's the sort of the winning and the losing of it.
Yeah, what do you think of Mackenzie's game?
I agree with you. It was probably his best. He had a good game. It really suited him as well, which is probably the one thing that we've always been saying. Like Mackenzie has certain games that really suits him. And Richie Mo'unga, every game kind of suits him, and you kind of expecting Mackenzie to come on and open it up afterwards. So he's had a lot of learning, but he had a decent game. I mean, I haven't really looked at his numbers, but I don't think anyone can be upset with the performance he had.
Mm. Yeah, I think the well, obviously, there's the hanging shadow of Richie Mo'unga in the distance, but I think slowly but surely DMAC is showing himself to be a test level 10 that can, like, if he's called upon, do a job for you. And then obviously if he's sort of an impact player in a year or two's time, if and when Mo'unga comes back, geez, that's a good prospect. And he's so like rush defense proof with his quick feet. Like, there's I think a lot of opportunities where the Creels or the Peter Steffs or Dixons were hunting him down, and he's just able just to get himself out of that bit of trouble. So yeah, he showed that against England as well, and yeah, I think he's definitely someone. If the All Blacks want to do something different to test the rush defense, they can always throw him on. So we get to half time. It's only 11-12 to the All Blacks. Like, there were two other penalties. It seems like, okay, a bit of a crazy half, some mistakes, not quite hitting our marks with the attacking game, and making some mistakes there, and not really sort of putting sustained pressure on the All Blacks. And then the second half starts in the worst possible way with the Jordy Barrett intercept. And I think that was clearly the box doing the same move three or four times, and Jordy was like, okay, I mean, at this point, I know you're passing it to Kolisi. I'm going to take this ball.
It it was so strange. It was so odd. Like, it's honestly something you do not expect from a good test side, and especially with those players. Delendi gets the ball. I wouldn't say it was a bad pass, but he kind of gets the ball. He's not really looking. He's not really heads up. So he's looking at the passer, getting the ball, and then he just shifts it on. And Jordy's like, "Thanks very
Mm.
much." It was such a bizarre try, and I mean, Jordy must have thought, "Holy smokes, I've actually got this!" Like, there was, I mean, in his mind, he's kind of going for it, but you're really thinking there's no ways they're going to do this again, are there?
Yeah, it seemed like also because the pass from Reinach to Sasha also wasn't really hitting the mark, and that sort of can cause a series, like it just stops the momentum of a particular move
Mm,
when the first pass is a bit off the mark, and then you have to readjust to make that pass, and then I think the timing was thrown off a little bit. And yeah, I don't think it was. Yeah, I don't blame Dialendi for that. It's more of a, I sort of blame the whole team for kind of going into autopilot there. And
yeah,
you go into
there was
autopilot
someone
with a
had to take it
move.
up.
Yeah. You go into autopilot with a move, you're not sort of playing heads up rugby. You do things and you don't hit your marks, and then you basically open opportunity for the team to take it there. So yeah, I mean, Jordy Barrett, we did play wing. So for a moment, I was like, oh man, RSAvNZL will catch him. I was like, oh yeah, Barrett scored a lot of tries from the wing. He's not a slow man at all.
Was he on the wing?
No, I mean, I'm saying he used to play on the wing, I should say.
Oh, got you, got you. Yeah, he was quick. I'm going to kind of go a little bit off scripture. I was very happy with the fact that he was the Barrett brother that had the most meters run. I thought that was excellent
Mm,
from the Springboks. But going back to Geordie, yes, he he's got gas, and he's massive. He's a massive, massive guy. I didn't realize how
yeah.
big he was. But yeah, he's still got gas. He's got enough gas to kind of edge you in that sort of 40 meter, I don't know, what is it, 40, 50 meter run in when you've got a turn. Because the
Mm.
Springboks were totally like, no one was expecting that. No one had turned their shoulders expecting they may have to run back. They're just flipping going all forward. So it was crazy.
Yeah. And then I guess maybe just to touch on it, like before halftime, because of, some blood burns and injuries and all that sort of stuff to run Nokia. But then Ben Jason Dixon, when Nokia comes back on, he's the one that gets subbed off for the game essentially. Yeah, I mean, we've seen the Springboks do this to players before, and to better players. I mean, Bonambi was sort of the first famous case of that. So it's not like obviously end of the career type of stuff here, but yeah, obviously there was something that Rassi wasn't quite getting from Dixon in this game.
Yeah, it's crazy. Um, Considering the engine that Dixon's got, like, they always say it all depends on, like, if you're not giving like close to your best, we're going to pull you. So I didn't think he was like overworked in that first half. Very interesting. Strange enough, I mean, he only came off 6 minutes before everyone else, but it just looked absolutely crazy when he came off
Mm.
before half time. But it was definitely the right move, and agree with you totally. This is not the end of the road for him. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts on the side of the scrum again this weekend. But I think they'll give him another game this weekend, whether he starts or is on the bench.
Yeah, I mean, I think now, and maybe talking about some of the players that really impressed with Nokia, I think doing his job at five. there's no reason now to play Peter Steph at lock unless obviously there's maybe another injury to the locks, which like seems like could be a potential thing that happens in the next few weeks. So yeah, you can play Peter Steph at 7, have Dixon maybe as a bench option, um, or maybe Janssen van Rensburg. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I think he'll still get opportunities either on Saturday or in the Argentina games. So yeah, I think Sean, then the game basically turns on. The bench comes on for the All Blacks. I mean, for the Springboks, they basically put on their bomb squad, and it still's not quite happening for the Springboks. They kind of come close with a few penalties again to close the gap, and then Caleb Clark scores his second try. Um, he scores the second try, and Ngomezulu probably does a thing that maybe helps to secure the game by ankle tapping him as he was about to run under the post. Um, but yeah, again, even in that try, it was just the All Blacks sort of catch and pass more so from a South African mistake, more so than like a big sort of defensive breakdown that happened there.
Yeah, it was like I know I gave Caleb Clark a whole bunch of gears last week, saying it's fine if he starts. And his tries that he scored were I wouldn't say they were run-ins, but they were just straight sprints. I'd like to see, you know, I think he can beat the allegations only if he does a little bit more. But he had a good game, and it was very much that. It was literally the All Blacks just catch and pass and just exploiting and just allowing the man out wide to get it. They did. I mean, they did fail twice once in the first half by not passing and scoring. So that also
Mm,
probably changed their setup. But yeah, it was excellent. Like the tries they scored with those catch pass and just beating the last man were excellent. Like it's really what any winger wants. Honestly, if you're playing out wide, you're just like, cool. Give me the ball in space that I don't have a man in front of me. Like the winger, you as a winger, you should be scoring that. And Clark did that. He's got gas. He's quicker than I thought he was.
yeah, I mean, I was listening to another podcast and they're talking about. It seems like Clark is a bit, slimmer from where he was before. Which once it was said, I was like, yeah, actually, it does maybe look like he's maybe a bit lighter on his feet, and he's just obviously worked really hard on the high ball and the aerial game, and there wasn't really any issues with him. And at some stages, he was used as an attacking threat to try and get the ball, on top of like our shorter wings. So yeah, obviously, I've also been someone that's been a bit anti clock, but I think I'm sort of coming to that acceptance stage that, you know, at the ripe old age of 27 for Mark Tilley, it might be, him being
Game
phased
over.
out and Caleb Clark coming in.
Yeah, yeah. Clark has changed, and on the breakdown they're talking about like that he's an aerial threat, which I never really considered before. So we'll probably see him again this weekend. And I saw you tweeting this weekend about Tille. You're wondering why he's on the bench, and then you worked it out. Yeah, it could be go time for him. Um, he must start for me though. He's the kind of player that I would have on the field from the get go. He's the kind of guy like if he doesn't get into the game, you can swap him out. He still would have had a good game. But if he really gets into the game, if Talia really starts cooking early on in the game, like then you know you golden.
Mm. So yeah, I think let's maybe start talking about some individual performances. Yeah, obviously the man of the match was Peter Steph Toy. Covered pretty much the whole second row. He was at blindside for part of the game. He was just picking up and going the whole time as well. It seemed like a tactic from the Springboks there. Yeah, like this Peter Steph season has been such a joy to watch. Like it's been a journey to get from 2019 to where we are now, and basically since what the World Cup quarterfinal last season, he's been basically in top form and playing his best rugby.
He is ridiculous, and I'm so happy that he got man in the match because Saturday was such an easy low hanging fruit kind of game to give it to Sasha Feinberg and Gomezuli just because of what he did. But it's good that the big boys are getting rewarded. He has been ridiculous this whole year. He's got to get World Player of the Year. Like, it's a no brainer. I mean, he's been cooking since the World Cup. He's playing all over the show, but still delivers. It's ridiculous, sublime performance, and those pick and drives from the base. I, I know we mentioned a while back, but I think it's only this year that we've seen it that he's really been doing it a lot. He makes so many meters of that. Like it is
Mm.
beautiful to watch.
Yeah, I'm wondering if if that was actually a intentional tactic for the box, because even both Reinach and Williams had four runs, and that was also them sort of sniping around the racks. And obviously they're quite good at that. They pacey type of scrum halves. But I think the box were, because the All Blacks aren't their defensive structures basically about spreading out. They have the classical defense that you were taught in school of just spread out, make sure you've got your man and drift. Essentially, they just try to cover space instead of putting this big sort of rush D type of defense. And obviously, as you're spreading and folding, there's a few gaps around the ruck if you're not careful. So you've got Peter Steph picking and going. You've got the offloads and maybe even the attempted offload that Dixon tried to do to Visa. You've got Reinach and Williams sniping around. But I think in the first half or in the first 60 minutes, Blackadder especially, but maybe the likes of Tupovai and Sam Kane were dealing with that quite well. That Reinach was trying to find space and the Boks were trying to get momentum from the sort of close contact, but they weren't able to build up a big head of steam. And then in the last 20, maybe some inexperienced players there, and now the Bucks are really able to get rolling and going, and obviously that's where pretty much those two tries came from.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and it's a good time. I mean, if you think about it, you've got Visa and Peter Steph to toy. If any of them make like a half gap, I mean, even Bongi Mbonambi, like if they make space like a meter and a half away, and the defense is just half like asleep for like a half a second, you've got Reiner and Williams who are ridiculously fast. It's a good tactic.
Yeah, I and then just other impressive players. I think. I mean, yeah, you've kind of mentioned Sasha, and I think the one thing I'll say about him is not that. I mean, I think the good thing about Sasha is going to sound like a negative, but the good thing about Sasha is that how he makes mistakes and he's able just to sort of get past it. So obviously there are a few flubbed kicks, there are a few maybe situations he wanted to have over in terms of like passing or executing the right option, but as we saw with the 60-meter penalty kick that he kicked in the first half, this man just stands up and wants to be part of every big moment in the game. And he's I think there was a conversation on Twitter about maybe he was sort of getting a bit aggy with the ref. I think he was getting more aggy with this team and just trying to shout them and and sort of get them to play better. Like he's just like I think we've said this in many ways before, but he's just really got the minerals of like a test leading fly half, of someone that can lead his team around, that can be aggressive when he needs to, that can run and beat defenders himself, that can put other people through. Like that sort of through ball he almost did for Curtly Orense was absolutely beautiful. And he's able to make the big tackles and big hits. And as we saw, like he's got that Bok DNA of chasing lost causes like he did with Caleb Clark.
Yeah, he's excellent. And something I've been thinking about this weekend. Excuse me. We we speak about players that are test ready and how the only real player that we've seen be test ready coming out of club rugby or domestic competition is Evan Etzebeth. Like he's the kind of guy that he stepped into test rugby and he was fine. You didn't have to work with him or do anything. Sasha's like that.
Mm.
He looks test ready. He wants to do it all, and he's perfectly capable of doing it all. It's amazing. Like I don't know, Tal, if you agree with me, but we haven't seen a test ready player come up for many years.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I guess you can say Pollard because he essentially also came out of high school. I
True.
think he only played like 2 or 3 games for the Bulls, but it's literally he's on that level in terms of new rugby player that's playing. I mean, he's literally he didn't even play 10 for the Stormers once this season, and he's played now 3 games in a row for the Box at 10, and now one against the
Jobber's in
All Blacks.
trouble.
Like we can talk about that later because geez, it's getting more and more complicated. But that, yeah, like he's just able just to stand into a game and execute there. So yeah, I don't even think this was like an absolutely special performance. Had some special moments, especially with the big penalty and some of the nice touches that he had, but it wasn't like a wild performance. And still, you watch him, you're like, oh, okay, this guy's going to be fantastic for years to come. Yeah, other players that impressed you, Sean?
Ruan Nokia has to play.
Mm,
Our lineouts
preach.
went to shit when he was off the field. Everyone wants Malcolm Marks to start. He's having a mare this year with lineouts, but everything was fine when Ruan Nokia came back on. So he's someone that needs to get a shout out. And Grant Williams is another one for me. I was chatting to someone now on Twitter, and they're like, "What's Grant Williams got to do to start?" And obviously, our starting nines and our bench nines have different game plans and different options. But then I saw Grant Williams played 43 minutes. I know, like, we brought on a lot of players in the 43-minute mark, but yeah, I'd love to see Grant Williams start. But I do know when he starts, he's going to have a different kind of game plan. So that's just the way it is. But yeah, so Nokia, Williams, and Aphelia Fassi, I was nervous about him before. Like, I'm not willing to fully go all in on him, but I think that's happening now. Those tackles he made, just the way he's playing, he's in a good space, and I'm loving it. Like, it's I'm not worried if they start him instead of Villy Leroux. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
that's
wow.
kind of where we are at the moment, and I'm quite happy with Villy or Fussy starting. So I'm super happy. And to the Church of Fussy, I apologize it took me so long.
Yeah, I think yeah, those are. I mean, we talked about Low Elrich Low as well. So those are probably the like new players that have been introduced to the box this year, and a lot of them put their hands up as, "Meh, I can stay in the squad for in the long term." I'll start with. I mean, I'll just continue with what you're saying with Fassi. Like, so yeah, I was watching the game with my mom-in-law, and she's been living with us for the last like few weeks and months, and she's basically gotten like really into like the Springboks and rugby, like with the especially with this World Cup last year. She also went to France with us as family, so it was awesome. So yeah, she's now like sort of stops her day to watch the Springboks now. And shame, she was not impressed with Fassi because he had the yellow card, he shanked a kick. She was blaming him for the tries because obviously the fullback is like the last person that comes into view when someone comes in to score. So she was not impressed with him. She was basically blaming him for the things. And I was just trying to like sort of explain to her, being like, I mean, it's not really him, it's the defensive structure. Like there's not much Fassi can do at this situation. She's saying no, Willemse would have stopped it. And I was like, yo, we've got a big Willemse stand now. Um, and then when Clark scored the second try and the game was the Springboks were 10 points out of it, she just went into a room, just angry, just doesn't want to watch. And I was like, "Ma'am, you've literally seen this team with the World Cup. Like, this is probably not the move for you to do here." Even though the Springboks were playing like quite badly at that stage, and obviously they win. And I'm watching with my wife, and I tell her we're not telling her the result. She doesn't deserve that. And so I think an hour or two later, she's like, "Oh, so how did the game end?" I was like, "No, they won." She was so like feeling so like dirty with herself about that.
That's outstanding. Oh my word. Oh, that is brilliant. I'm
She's not a fussy fan for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's but it is like when you first get into the game, it's so easy to blame the last man. It's like blaming the goalkeeper in football.
Mm. No, I think that was genuinely what was happening, and she was, and like it seemed like every time Fassi did something well, like that kick when he collected it for himself and all those things, like even then she'd find a reason to blame her and blame Fassi and be like, well, someone else would have made sure the ball would have stayed in the field for Colby or Orense to collect and all that sort of stuff. So I was just like, oh, Fassi, also not helping me, man. You must try do something a bit different here, please.
Yeah, yeah. It was brilliant. That's such an amazing sort of yin and yang of how Fassi played. Here I am being converted, and your mom-in-law is just like, that's it, get rid of him.
So yeah, Church of Fassi needs to still work on getting more converts. But yeah, I think you're fully right. Like Fassi's now has at least established himself as, hey, don't forget me. When we're talking back three options in the future. And if and when, like, the sunset of Leroux's career happens, like, we're more than comfortable with him, playing big games as we saw on Saturday. Nokia, I think, does something similar, like running the lineouts, like you said. We talked about Aruchlo and just his ability. Like, he just fixed almost single-handedly the kickoffs for the box and was just like, I'm going to catch the ball and just run over people. Like, I
And
don't understand
sidestep
what's
them.
so hard about this. And sidestep
Yeah,
Talea as well.
he's what? Talaya went. He tackled air. Like to miss a tackle so badly that you tackle air is you have been done in. That's the kind of thing where you just leave the field, man. Like oh man, to tackle air, it's like when Villarreal tried to when Gonzalez for Argentina did Villarreal,
Mm.
he tackled air. Like that's it. You'll never hear the end of it. I mean, especially for Talia and the fact that Lowe's an eighth man and not exactly known for stepping.
Yeah, no, he was. I think if he's like a, I we'll see obviously if he's staying in the team once all the first choice players come back and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, just as someone that can play the last 20, 30 minutes and his carrying ability, like he's just amazing. And well, he's going to be adding value to the box for years to come. Um, yeah, I mean, I felt good as a Bulls fan because, the Nokia and low agendas I've been pushing for so long are finally coming to fruition. And it was just like, we've been seeing this as Bulls fans for how long, and people are sort of coming to the realization. I'm still not sure what exactly they were missing to not be sort of getting more regular game time at the box, but happy now that it's happened.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, and then I guess other quick players was, Quaka played well. Kobe obviously had his busy game. I mean, I'm probably understating how well Quaka Smith played. He was obviously big impact, but we sort of used to it by now. That's probably almost the unfortunate part of it. Um,
And to
I
come on for
really
Nokia as well, which is sorry to interrupt you. Like when he came
yes,
on for Nokia, I was like, oh, this is interesting. But he was brilliant.
yeah. No, he filled in well. You mentioned Williams. I thought he had a bit of a rough start, but he got to it at the end. And then on the All Black side, I think the big one for me was Tupovai. I think he's had now two or three good games or really good games in a row where he's shown, okay, this test stuff, I've got it. Don't worry about me. Like he's getting stuck in, which is basically what you want from from a lock. He's been playing essentially with the All Blacks for the last 4 years, been like sort of third, fourth choice. And he's shown now, okay, he has been learning and absorbing from Retallick and Whitelock and Barrett and them. So, I think Vi is probably going to be in that first choice locking pairing with Scott Barrett for years to come. And obviously, I think you can probably say the same about Ethan Blackadder, who had a really industrious performance on Saturday.
He did, but he had that schoolboy vibe in his soul again when he decided he was going to go over Fassi, which was an absolute shocker.
Goodness.
Shocker, absolute shocker. But we must talk about that later. But Vi was good for me. The guys that stood out, I thought this is going to piss some people off. I thought Sam Kane was excellent. I think he was the most tackles
Mm,
on the day. He did get smoked by Khaleesi. Like yeah, it was very interesting. And if I'm not mistaken, the sighting window is 48 hours, and we haven't really heard anything yet. So yeah, I don't know if he's going to get cited for that tackle on Khaleesi. But I thought Kane did his job. Caleb Clark was excellent. I don't. I must be honest. When I watched it again, I watched bits of pieces of it, but mostly on the Springboks. But I don't remember Caleb Clark really being kind of out of place. So I thought he had a good game. But yeah. Oh, and the other is Tyrell Lomax. I was impressed with him.
yeah. I think him and Tamati Williams at least held it down in the scrum in the first half. And yeah, doesn't seem
The
like
set
it
piece.
was any skullduggery.
No, the scrums. I saw one person on socials the scrums were like we should have got like 5 penalties or something. I was like, what on earth? I don't know a hell of a lot about scrums, but those scrums looked like they were pretty even for me. It didn't look like anyone had the ascendancy. There were a couple of moments at the end of the scrum when things happened that I thought there may have been a whistle, but there wasn't. Like it really didn't seem like it seemed like completely even for me.
Yeah. I think the last point, and then we're going to talk about some of the controversial stuff, is The All
Yeah,
Blacks bench, I think, almost lost the game for them, if I can put it like that. Like, if you want to
it did lose
summarize
the
it,
game.
it's the Springbok bench was able to keep the intensity of the first half, if not raise it in some cases. With some players, obviously we've built a team around, having a 23 that will just keep an intensity for long. And the All Blacks, and when you look at how many caps each player has in the All Blacks bench, you basically find out why and what the reason was they weren't able to maybe play as well as they could have. So just trying to find it, going through the caps. Amua 11, Tungafasi 61, of course, Newell 18, Darry 3, Finau 3, Ratima 4, Leonard Brown 75, Talea 13. I didn't know. I thought Talea had at least 10 more tests than that, but anyway. So apart from Tungafasi and Leonard Brown, literally everyone hasn't played 20 tests. So
Yeah,
you can see, I think you can see that with like when Darry came on for Vai and Finau came on for Blackadder, the game basically changed.
yeah, it was massive. I didn't think that Perinara, like that was also a big change for me. That Perinara
Mm,
Ratima won, but it's true. Like if you look at Dari, Finau, and Ratima, the two, like the three players that are under 5 caps, I think you said, like they
mm,
really didn't like turn it on. Amur, Tungafasi, and Newell were okay. Obviously, Tungafasi getting carded. Leonard Brown, actually, I don't really remember. Like he didn't do anything crazy, but I mean, it was okay. And then Mark Tillier really didn't do anything. He was on
mm,
for what 15 minutes, but by then they weren't giving ball to like he wasn't getting the ball. Like let's say for argument's sake, you had someone like a Caleb Clark coming on and for Talia. Hypothetically, I know they play on opposite wings, but like Caleb Clark will go hunting more for the ball and getting it, and he will obviously be a little bit more industrious. But yeah,
mm.
I still think they should start Talia. I mean, I'm absolutely totally making up this shit just to prove my point, but like it's just I would start him. I totally would start him. Leonard Brown, I probably would start as well because the thing is with Leonard Brown, then obviously if I would probably start him at 13. Rico Ioane had a decent game. I think he had the most post contact meters out of any player. But other than that, he didn't do anything crazy. The All Black midfield had more missed tackles than our midfield, if I'm not mistaken, or
Mm.
worst percentage completed. But if you have someone like Rico Ioane on the bench, like he can come in and cover 13 or wing when you need it. You can move Anton Leonard Brown to 12. I think they should look into that, but that's just me being biased.
Yeah, I think what summarizes your point, Sean, in terms of the impact of the backs, is between Ratima, Leonard Brown, and Telea, they had zero. They had one carry between them, and they made 0 meters. Like they just
What?
weren't able to insert themselves into the game and attack. And it felt like once New Zealand had that penalty that they kicked to touch and then didn't convert from it, that was basically the last time they saw the ball in an attacking position for the whole game. So just also looking through the rest of the bench, Darry had 2 meters, Newell had one, Finau had one. That was it.
What? I'm sorry.
So they
Like
just had no
that
ball
just
in the last 20 minutes.
they had no ball, but that also shows how important benches are, like to make an
Mm.
impact. And it does, and it honestly does. It doesn't. It's not necessarily a skill set that they're not skillful enough. It's just the case that they're just not experienced enough at the moment. But yeah, those carry numbers are ridiculous.
Yeah. I think essentially, I mean, the All Blacks will just have to wait and be patient. Obviously, they've lost quite a chunk of like big experienced players in the last cycle, and it's not like they're coming into there's the privilege of the Springboks right now, which we saw with the All Blacks like 10 or so years ago, is when it's a winning team, a Sasha can come in and play at his best, or a low or someone like that. But you're playing in a team that's not quite hitting its marks, new coach, all that sort of stuff. It's going to be a bit harder for you. But I think that shows that they need to build on that bench. Like I think we said the same thing with England when they faced All Blacks. Is look, England's got the 15 that can match anyone in the world. It's the bench that is probably winning or losing them games. So we'll have to see how that goes in the next Saturday. And I think there isn't really much they can do, Sean. I think it's just yeah, like you said, you can sort of rearrange the deck chairs, maybe start Leonard Brown and have Rico on the bench. But at this
It doesn't.
stage,
It's the same.
I
It's same
mean,
for same. You know.
yeah, I mean, even I think we're both on the pro Leonard Brown side of the argument, but it's not like you're getting too much of an improvement there, even though I think maybe Ioane would be better off the bench. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
Dalton Papali is going to be fit by Saturday. I don't know if that's the case. Otherwise, Finau didn't really make an impact. I would give him another chance, but maybe you play Papali, you play maybe someone like Wallace Titi. Does Tuipulotu, is he fit? Can he come in just to give a bit more grunt in the lock? Because Dari, especially when he's being like carried up by Itzebeth for that turnover, it was sort of like a man versus boy type of situation. And you could see grizzled 30 odd year old Eben Etzebeth with, 1,000 caps versus Sam Darry, looking like he, just came from a farm in Canterbury type of thing.
And he's like 15 kilograms when wet. Um,
Yeah.
like when are the All Black? I know that they're making changes and stuff. When are they going to look at the option of getting overseas players? They have, like, if you're looking at
Interesting
Mwanga,
question.
Aaron Smith, Brody Retallick, those three players, just like they would probably start, but what it does to your bench is changes everything, changes
Hmm.
absolutely everything. Um, but
So
I mean, I
yeah,
don't think it's
that's
going to happen in this World Cup cycle
yeah. So that's Perinar on the bench. That's now DMAC on the bench.
or
If
Bowden on
Frizzell
the
comes,
bench.
yeah. And then if Frizzell maybe comes back, that's now Blackadder or Kane on the bench. Like, yeah, I think that was my prediction at the start of the year. I think we talked about this earlier in the year in the podcast. I thought this would be changed by now. I thought Razor would have pushed for it, but yeah, it seems like it'll still be at least on for next few months, if not next few years. It would add a lot, but also I think longer term, maybe just be patient with you. I'm not so sure about Derry. Maybe Derry could sort of add some weight and he could sort of get to that part. But maybe he's similar to a Nokia. He just needs a few games and he can get there. But like a Finau probably is going to get better with more games. Ratimer definitely has the talent. I think Cam Roygard is coming back onto the field quite soon.
They
He's
miss him.
training, I think, again. Yeah,
Look,
and
he's been
he
out
would
for a
be a
long time.
great impact player at nine.
I think he would
So yeah,
start.
I think
I think he would start, and they were. I don't even know if they would put Perinara on the bench then, but I can't see them moving away from having experienced nines. The thing is,
mm,
sorry to interrupt you. The thing is, they're going to stick with this sort of wider squad for a while still now. Like definitely, well, not definitely, but I would assume until at least the next World Cup. The thing is, if things change after the next World Cup, all of a sudden they have like 40 players, 40, 45 players with good experience. So it's bad for now, it's good for later.
yeah. And yeah, I think that's how you must take a building, a rebuild. And unfortunately for Razor, that's not quite the country you want to do a rebuild in because they want results and they want them now.
It's the first time
Sean, let's
ever.
talk. Yeah, I mean, they might be 1-3 if they lose on Saturday, which will be unprecedented. So let's talk about some of these controversial calls. Maybe let's start with the Sam Kane. Did he possibly hit Kolisi high? I think. Oh, maybe let's take. Sorry, let me take a step back. Let's talk about it broadly. I don't know, and I think Jared made a good point about this on social media. I think we have an issue that Sanzar has tried to emphasize the quick game and not taking too much time with decisions. And it just seems like the TMO and the ref, I assume they're talking with each other. I mean, they kind of said things like that over the course of the game. But it just seems like something happens, the TMO is like, hey, look at that. And the TMO sort of just has one look at it and it's like, oh, look, looks fine and carries on. It does seem like to be time taken with some of these decisions. And it caused a bit of chaos in the game. I mean, from maybe missed tackle, or missed high shots to Mbonambi dropping the ball to New Zealand banking for that rolling more try. I don't know if it's like I don't know what the situation was, but it just seemed like the TMO appeared for that fussy yellow card and just I don't know when to Rosebank Mall or something like that for the night.
they, they were communicating while play was going on in the beginning.
Mm,
And I heard that and I was like, This is awesome. I like that because they do communicate during the game, but now everyone can hear it. But then it went away, as you said, and I agree with you totally. It is so when things get brought in, the way things normally happen in life with a lot of things is like things like get overdone in the beginning, and then you underdo them, and then you find your happy middle ground. And unfortunately, we're in like that space where they're trying to underdo it because we got to that stage where everyone's like, oh, that damn TMO, like he wants to look at something, and then you felt like whenever the TMO came in, that someone was definitely going to get a card, and then kind of the stronger referees, changed that. But it brought stoppages to the game, and they want to speed everything up. I think they're trying to do too much too early and trying to enforce bad habits because, like, it was. Yes, you've summed it up well, you and Jared, about like just trying to be too fast that things weren't looked at properly. It just seemed so bizarre. And it was shit as the game goes. Like everyone wants a fast game, but then the fallout after that is even worse.
Yeah, I've seen it with all the other sports we watch. It never works. The quick decision making never works. Fans say they
You
want it,
can't
you
in
don't
this,
want
yeah.
it.
But it's such a like this, especially with the way cameras are, like with the coverage. You can see a guy's like pimple pop on his face in a driving mall. You know what I mean? Like so now they
Mm.
want the refs to play things like. I mean, how many times we've seen something where a guy scored a try, but then they go back and show it on TV, and then you're like, oh, he's lost the ball. You know what I mean? Like, it's so you can't expect referees and everyone to make that in real time, but then give the crowd all the real stuff afterwards, and everyone shits the bed. Like it's not healthy.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go through the decisions kind of in some sort of chronological order. So I think the banking before the mall, I think that's pretty clear. Banking, for people that maybe aren't aware, is okay, we have a line out, the jumper comes down with the ball, and then the people that lifted him basically almost are like bodyguards and come in front of the jumper, which makes it more harder for the defenders to get to the jumper and to the ball. You're not allowed to do that according to the laws. So the accusation was basically that I think it was Williams and Lomax, but to the jumper the lifters just got in front of Vi when that rolling maul happened. Yeah, which is I think pretty clear when you watch that maul again. And Kolisi made a like was asking about it, and again it just seemed like the ref was like, "Hey, we checked, it's fine." But
Yes.
yeah, it was quite clear just from one replay that maybe let's check it one more time because it doesn't seem like your check was that thorough.
For me, so here's something. I If that is the mandate, then I have no problem with the way the game was refereed. But I have a problem with
Mm,
the way the game was officiated. Because
mm,
that means that the TMO really wasn't having a look at it properly, like, or was too shit scared to interfere, or whatever the reason may be. Because you can't blame the referee. Unfortunately, the referees are the ones who get blamed because they've got the whistle in their hand. But these are the mandates. This is the way that it's set up, is that the TMO is supposed to be in the background checking all this stuff, which they've done in the past. But now with the game of speeding up, like, is the TMO maybe then given a time limit? Like, is the TMO, are they maybe saying, like, you have to, you have to come back to the referee within 30 seconds, otherwise don't. Maybe that's the case. Like, I don't know, but it's not working.
I wouldn't be too surprised if that's almost like they've been given, let's say, not a strict one, but some level of you get two looks at this. If you can't find it, you can't find it. And that also now brings in the broadcaster into play because either sometimes angles are there or not there, or like things only become more clear. Like, and I mean, I think broadcasting is also dynamic, but like, don't see things as you if you want to see them. So I I I I think this is just a very slippery slope to do that, and we saw that with the Monambi try, where I think you said it earlier, Sean. It looked like a try to me when in live, because obviously Bongi just sort of tramples over and he scores, but he clearly lost the ball there. And I mean, at worst, maybe you can say the All Black knocked it on from him, but it bounced and then came back off Bongi and went forward. Like, it's a knock on that should have been overturned, and that was it. Maybe you can maybe say the All Black try was a bit debatable. This was a clear knock on.
So, our esteemed colleague Jared Wright is going to be posting. It should be out now, but he is posting some stuff, and I have a brief chat with him before we went on air about some of the things because I wanted to clarify the Fassi situation, which has caused chaos. But
Oh,
one
I
thing that
didn't
he
even
did,
talk about that. Yeah.
no, we're going to get there. Don't worry, I will not let that slide. But what at the end of our chat about Fassi and all that sort of stuff, he sent me a little note saying the Bongi Mbonambi try stood. It was correctly awarded. And that
Mm.
doesn't sit right with me because I'm with you. He loses control of the ball. The laws do say if you lose control of the ball, does it go forward or does it go backwards? And that's probably where it came out. But to me, he loses it and then Barrett touches it and goes backwards, and that's a knock on. But
Mm.
it's getting super technical, and I agree with you. Like awarding that try just on the simple eye test doesn't look right, but the laws seem to give it. But Jared's going to do something. It'll be posted up soon. We'll post a link, but it's on Planet Rugby. You'll be able to find out all of the ins and outs of what happened from referees.
Yeah, I think with it, and I mean, an All Black fan was making this point. Like they basically got a try overturned on a similar-ish type of situation with the knock on by Severe for the Aaron Smith non-try, and it was a TMO looking back and seeing it and flagging it, and then sort of doing that decision making. And you kind of expect the same thing to happen in this context as well. So it's just also if rugby could sort of be consistent with how they do things, that would also be great because now you're trying to explain, okay, no, but like the interpretation is different now, or we're not giving as much time to TMOs, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think it was a bit rough there. But yeah, I think yeah, it's one of those. If yeah, I've seen some people trying to make the argument for Monambi. It doesn't fly with me, unfortunately.
No,
But
I'm with you.
anyway,
The eye test says it's a knock on. Like,
yeah,
and the thing is the ball is doesn't have control in it the whole way. The ball does leave him, but it also touches Barrett, and then it doesn't look like he grounds it properly. So you don't need to ground it with your hands. You can ground it with the top half of your body, I believe. I don't know where it
mm,
starts. Like, is it from your waist or from your chest? I do not know. But you can ground it with other things besides your hand. It just didn't look right. I don't feel comfortable with that.
yeah. So let's talk about the fussy yellow card. Do you want to have a go at trying to explain it?
Yeah, for sure. So, Aphelia Fassi makes an unbelievable try-saving tackle on Ethan Blackadder, who got white line
Should
fever
have
and decided he
passed.
was going to. Hmm?
Who should have passed?
He decided he was going to go over a backline player to score this try when he had a man outside him. I can't remember the score. It was 0-0 at the time. No, it might have
Yeah.
been 7-0. Doesn't matter. It was points that they really needed at the time. And it would have really changed I think it would have changed the game. But so Fassi makes this unbelievable tackle. The thing is he kind of bear hug tackles him in a way, but the way that everyone finishes the tackle, it finishes up that Ethan Blackadder is on the Springbok side and Aphelia Fassi is on the All Black side. Aphelia Fassi then gets up to I can't remember what he wanted to do. Gets up, and then Sam Kane is coming in, and I think there was a pop or there was a something. But then he almost goes into effect to tackle, and there was a knock on, which may or may not may or may not have influenced. That is beside the point. The team up picks us up, and he is yellow carded. So for me, anything that is foul play or is illegal is a penalty at that stage after that line break. It has to be yellow carded. So I agree totally with the yellow card. I then did post it on Twitter, and it was a shitstorm. It was crazy. People are sending me snippets of what the law says and all that. And I got a little bit confused because the way I saw it was Aphelia Fassi, after completing that tackle, would need to have been onside. And he wasn't onside because he was on the All Black side of the ball and Ethan Blackadder. And then he got involved in the game. But then someone sent me something because I think it was Norkia kind of comes in to help with the tackle and then brushes over Blackadder at the time. It might have been okay, but there was a Springbok there. And then they said maybe because of that, a ruck had been formed. So it got a little bit confusing. And as I said in the beginning, like what's really great is like all the idiots, well, not great is the idiots come out, but what's really great is people do get to learn about the laws if they are willing to learn. So I messaged Jared before we came on air because that was the way that I saw it. But I wanted to kind of clarify what was going on. And I know that he was having a look at a few things. So he has sent me this. Okay. Fassi stands up in an offside position from the tackle. He must get back onside before making the tackle as he's still within 1 meter of the tackle zone. Law 14.6, tacklers may play the ball from the direction of their own goal line provided they have complied with the above responsibilities and that a ruck has not formed. So he didn't get back onside, which was my gut feel about the whole thing. So
Yeah.
essentially, that is the right call. And he was sin-binned because he just didn't get back on side. And everyone's issue with this is that a ruck hasn't formed. So if you remember back a few years when Italy absolutely took the piss and they figured out a sort of a loophole in the ruck area when they were playing
Yeah.
England. And when they made the tackle, no one went in to form a ruck, and England went in to form a ruck, and Italy then ran up to the players, like in what we'd call is in an offside position. But because a ruck hadn't been formed, there was no offside line. World Rugby changed the laws after that and created an offside line at the tackle area. So you don't need a ruck to have an offside line. The tackler must get into an onside position. And the way, sorry, I'm blabbing here. The way that I looked at that, and it just looked wrong to me, was if Aphelia Fassi did want to steal that ball, he could not get up after the tackle and steal that ball. He would have to go onto an onside position. And I know he wasn't necessarily stealing the ball, but he was still involved in the game and therefore from an offside position. How'd I do?
I think you did pretty well.
Thanks, Jared.
Yeah, I think it's basically you can't, even though you make the tackle. I mean, similar things would like this. I almost want to say this is coming also from the Heinrich Brousseau area. You still need to sort of go back to an onside position to play the ball again. You can't just sort of make the tackle and then sort of have free reign to do whatever you want with the ball. That's, I think, the essentially how you have to see that particular situation. And yeah, I think especially because it was, a professional foul deep in the 22, that was basically ref's hands were tied. And yeah, it's unfortunate for poor who's the ref on Saturday now again. um
Conway.
he Not Clancy. Clancy's this weekend. With Andrew Brace, I think some of the things that he's being sort of shouted at, it wasn't him. It was like, you know he trusts, obviously the process goes up to sort of the TMO, and something is called or not called, and then he has to report that back on the ground. I think he could have done better with some certain aspects of refereeing the game, but yeah, I even with that one, like once it's decided it's a penalty, it's basically going to be a yellow card. Like that shouldn't be too controversial once that decision is made. And even with the Sam Kane hit on Kolisi, um, obviously it's a quick game. I barely saw it myself. I've only seen it because of the slow mos, and even the slow mos, it's not. I think there's two things. One, Kane, if Sam Kane's going to continue playing rugby, unless he's going to play some, I don't know, like UFC rugby, so please bend your hips if you're going to make a tackle. I mean, try not to put yourself in the same position as the World Cup final in France. That would, I think, be helpful to yourself. But two, at least obviously it's grainy phone footage we've gotten so far. I can't say for sure it's a red card, but I think it's definitely one where at the very least it has to be looked at again, and care has to be taken, and some level of bunker review has to happen. I don't,
Yeah.
I mean, I think so now there's some level of like conspiracy that, Safkin's getting injured and there's not been reviews of those things or sanctions for that. I think the Doris one is a much more egregious, and that should have had some level of ban versus this one where I think if we have a proper angle and all that sort of stuff, maybe it's just a yellow card type of situation. But I don't understand how that wasn't looked at again. If we're gonna do this fast game thing, and it's puts player safety into danger, then we're doing the wrong thing.
And that is, yes. The thing is what happens if they ran something in the background and they've figured out there was nothing that could really be seen? Because I agree with you,
Mm,
and as much as we're looking at stuff, it is grainy and dodgy. Like I looked at that footage, which I also, as you, only saw afterwards, and like I'm kind of, I think there's definitely doubt there. Like there's stuff happening there. It doesn't look like it's direct to his chin, it's his cheek. So, but that could be the footage. But what happens if that conversation, or should I say, the TMO then told the referee afterwards, okay, I had a look at this, everything's fine. Or maybe he just looked at it and figured there was nothing much in it, didn't stop the game. The ref didn't pick it up in game, so nothing was happened. That's also the problem that the fans are having, is because we are so used to being walked through the whole process by the TMO and the referee. But it's a vicious circle because people don't want the game to stop so the referee and the TMO can walk through it. I do, however, agree with you that that totally should have been looked at. Um, but what would have happened, I do not know. But yeah, it's, and I don't buy into this conspiracy theory stuff. I know AP put something up on Twitter about how many times things have happened to South African players and nothing gets done about it. Like I don't buy into that. I can't really explain why it always happens that way. I just don't know.
yeah. Um, have we missed any other controversial decisions?
No, I think those are the big ones. A couple of others I did see pop up on social, but I can't Oh, there was a clear out. There was a clear out on
Yeah,
Pieter Steph the third.
I did see that during the game. I thought, ooh, it was Tupavai, and I was like, yeah, that one was. I was like, that they got away with something there. I think, yeah, the game was just happening at a pace though, because I think there's some calls I was just like, guys, just take the extra second to review it. You would see or be able to make the calls there, and it seemed like they just didn't want to. I think the other one was, and I made a note that Adi Sevilla hasn't made a turnover against the box in 4 games now, which is absolutely
Yes,
insane. Um,
yes. I want to talk
you
about
know,
Hardy, but when you're done,
y- actually, yeah. My point is going to be number one. Clearly, the Bucks are able to nullify him, but I think also, geez, he got a. I think there were 2 or 3 times where I think he was pretty close to a turnover, or close to at least winning a penalty, and the ref wasn't giving him any purchase on those decisions. But I think it's been weird because Xavier now has had probably in the last 4 games that the All Blacks have played against the Box. So that's the rugby championship game last year where the All Blacks won, and the 3 wins the Box have had since. He hasn't really played to his best. Hasn't really, been. I mean, he's carried decently, but not to the level we know Artie can get, and has not made the impact defensively as can be seen with the turnover numbers.
it is beautiful. And when you posted that, I absolutely loved it. So thank you. I and There's another thing that made me think about is Bowden Barrett had like the highest running meters by an All Black on Saturday was Geordie. I really feel that it has to be intentional how we're managing those players, like they're danger players, like how we getting rid of Ardie and stopping him from doing really what he does best. And the other was Bowden Barrett running from deep is flippin' dangerous. How have we done it that we've stopped him from making those meters? Because honestly, if you were given a choice between Geordie Barrett or Bowden Barrett's having the most running meters against you, you totally would go with Geordie, just because like he's doesn't seem that fast, and like after earlier we kind of realized he was, but he's not. He just is. He's a different player to Bowden. Like Bowden's going to link up and do something flippant diabolical. His kick retrievals off his own kicks are also hectic. So
Mm.
we are definitely nullifying their super danger points. It seems it looks like that to me. And I mean, even like Rico Ioane hasn't really cooked against us for a very long time. That
Mm.
like he is a dangerous player on attack. There's no doubt about it. But we are doing really well to block off danger points, and that could be the reason why they can't get going.
Yeah, I think there's some things where we are nullifying their strengths. To be fair to Bowden, he had 6 carries and made 3 breaks. So he's I think he's able to create things. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe in terms of the pace for him to be the one making the run versus the pace for him to make the break and then get it to someone else is
Mm,
two different things. Or he
mm,
makes the break and we're still able to get him with the scramble. But yeah, I think on he can say both things can be true. I don't think there was too many in that All Black starting 15 that had a bad game, but the big senior players, even Scott Barrett to an extent, I thought he was not as involved as I thought he would be. I think the big senior players just didn't quite meet the match compared to maybe the big key players for the Springboks, and that maybe was the difference at the end. Look, I think the Springboks now have gotten to that, and which is what I'm enjoying about the season. They've got into that place now after the World Cup and the 1 point wins and going through the toughest draw and all that sort of stuff. They must be basically feeding themselves that they can win from any position, like including now 10 points behind against the All Blacks. And if this might, who knows how long this lasts? It could be just this year, it could be many years, it could be whatever. So this is the time where you need to make teams play out of their absolute skin to beat you, which is essentially what Ireland did now, and New Zealand was kind of able to do for 60 minutes. But if you want to beat the Springboks, you have to basically take the head off and bury the head in the desert as far as possible from it, unless you want like a zombie to wake up. And that's unfortunately with the All Blacks right now. They're not at that stage where they can really play, I think, great rugby for 80 minutes. They'll maybe get there now or soon or later, but they're just not there yet. And essentially for the Springboks, they put themselves, I think, to take a wider view, they are about 6 points away from winning the rugby championship. So that's obviously a great result. Other results have worked well with, everyone else beating everyone else. So this could really put the Boks in a position where they can win the rugby championship, win it convincingly, could even go unbeaten if they want, or if um, if they want to experiment, they can do that for the Argentina game. So yeah, I think this is a really good weekend for the Springboks, all things considered. Um, it could have been bad if we stopped it at 60 minutes, but they were able to get the win at the end.
yeah. The thing is we're at that stage where you have to play out of your skin to beat us. Like everyone, any team at the moment has to play their best possible game to beat us, and it's what we did um, against France. That's what New Zealand did against Ireland in the World Cup. Like that's where we are. We are getting to that stage where, like, if we put out the big boys, and like you have to play your absolute best. And just to touch on winning the rugby championship, are we not 5 points away? I think we can sew it up if we win, whether get a bonus point this weekend, because we've got 14 points and New Zealand. Oh no, I'm talking shit. So we've got how many more games left? We've got the All
Three.
Blacks and then Argentina twice.
Yes.
Can we not play Argentina 3 times?
Why would we play them? Oh, no, we're playing them twice.
Yeah, okay. So in some of the things that are, we've got an extra game against them, I think, or something. I've maybe picked up some confusing stuff, but yeah. So we are very close to winning it, and it would be absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. So I think the Springboks could well actually, win the game on Saturday. Um, breaking news about later breaking news is that the Springboks will only announce their team on Thursday. So for those used to not having to discuss teams and all that sort of stuff, you'll have to wait a little bit. It seems like we thought Sia Kolisi might be out for quite a while. Don Newman made a point that he might be able to play on Saturday. I wouldn't know how because his face looked swollen up after the game on Saturday. Orange is probably out with concussion or almost definitely out. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there is a bit of shifting of changing of the deck. I would I think just stay with more or less the same 23. Make obviously injury changes where you can. You can then sort of earn the right, if you do that, and essentially win the rugby championship next week, to then give, Peter Steph, Itzebeth, those sort of players like the week off and not have them go to Buenos Aires.
Yeah. If we can sew it up now this weekend in Cape Town, and then change it up for Argentina. It would be glorious for our future. But I think we've really got to win it. I don't see us losing and not getting one, maybe two bonus points against New Zealand. So we're still very much in it. What we might do is then just make sure that we dominate Argentina when they play here.
Yeah. But yeah, I think a win on Saturday could then open up a few things. And yeah, I'm sure the players can be motivated. I think their wives and families can motivate them and say, look, you win, we can actually go out on Saturday morning and just have a nice sort of family day or breakfast or whatever they want to do with their families. Um, let's quickly talk. I know we both didn't watch it. The Wallabies Argentina game. Wallabies won 20 points to 19. It was played, I think, in the flood in a biblical flood, basically. Um, from what I've saw from the highlights, it seemed like there was a bit of a rough start because I think the Australia was 10-0 down after like the first quarter, but they're able to sort of put themselves and fight themselves back. And yeah, from what I hear, Lenny Guitar was really impressive. He's carrying on some really good form. And it's just a good, significant win for Joe Schmidt. I think that the team is able to figure things out, problem solve. And look, Argentina is very much a seesaw of a team, but it's still not an easy feat to beat them away from or at their home.
No. Um, like the Australians, Joe Schmidt's got a lot of work to do. It's going to be very interesting. I do honestly feel he's got an eye on the Lions tour next year, so he's got to be kind of sorting stuff out like that. But considering, I think Australia 8 losses in a row in the rugby championship, um, considering they played away from home in Argentina, which is not necessarily easy, to go and win a game like that with a kick and being under pressure is super impressive.
Yeah, I think that's going. I mean, but again, sort of on the other side of the coin, Argentina. First of all, big shout out to Augustin Creevy. He plays his last game for Argentina in a, I think, 20-year career for the Pumas. He's played, I think, since 2005, which is absolutely ridiculous. He's now
And his first
hanging
test was
up
at
his
flag.
boots. That's also a crazy stat. But yeah, like he's obviously one of the legends of Argentinian rugby, been one of the best hookers, I think, at least in the last like 5 to 10 years, you could probably say. Like he's been really good, an amazing leader. He's helped them basically get to the stage now where they are top six or so in the world and become at least a little bit more consistent than they were before. So, yeah, salute to the big man. And it just seems like every time you think, okay, Argentina's lost a big hooker. I mean, Ledesma was before him, then came Creevy, then Creevy came, then came Montoya, and now Montoya's, I think, in his 30s or like in his mid 30s. It looks like Ruiz might be the next one. So they seem to be fine with hookers.
Yeah, it's hard losing out on a guy like that. They have done really well to kind of phase him out in a way. Like he hasn't played in every game, so I think they're getting in a better place. But absolute legend of the game. So yeah, we'll still see him playing in the Premiership. Though I still think he's got a couple more years left in his contract there.
Yeah. So two big stats from this game. I think last week we were talking about Lenny Guitar was sort of top for dominant carries in the rugby championship. Like his carries sort of proportionately were more dominant than anyone else. Like I think he had 50% of his carries were dominant, but he only made 3 carries in the Perth test. In this test, he made 9 carries. He was the second highest carrier for the Wallabies. So the Wallabies got those numbers right. Maybe playing Hamish Stewart at 12 helped as well, just to distribute the ball to him. And then the second thing is College Zon has now made 56 tackles in the rugby championship and has still not missed one.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's almost at 20 tackles a game. He also made 2 turnovers, so obviously it was a much better game from him than the Springbok games. But yeah, look, it will. I can almost bet on this being a Pumas win this weekend and probably a convincing Pumas win. But there's something at
That's how it
least
goes,
for
eh?
Joe Schmidt to build on.
Yeah, that's normally how it goes. But I tell you, if Australia can pull something together and put in a massive performance and get a good result this weekend, like things will change for them. I know that the Bledisloe Cup is just right around the corner. Three tests against the All Blacks, who are also struggling, but you don't really see the Aussies beating them. But it could be quite something if they pull something together this weekend and what it does for them moving forward.
Where do you get this three test thing, Sean? It's also two tests for them.
No, sorry, the Bledisloe isn't that over three tests? Don't they
It's
play a
two
third
tests
one
still.
afterwards? I
No, I think
think.
they stopped that a few years back because
Okay.
New Zealand's going to be playing Japan in a few weeks anyway, so that's probably taken that slot. Yeah, I think they. I don't know who or what complained about it, but they said we're just going to keep it to two tests now.
Oh, my bad. I just want more rugby.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, I think on just a few sort of little other little things. Um, let's talk about the haka. So I'm not quite sure what was happening at Ellis Park on Saturday. There was an explanation. We'll get to that now. But essentially, two things. One, I'm not going to get his name now, but the Maori King passed away during the week. So the All Blacks were wearing black armbands, and they were going to basically like do a prayer for him at the start of the haka. So this was reported, I think, from Paul Cully and some other New Zealand media members. Clearly, the message didn't get to the Ellis Park DJ because he was playing the final countdown at that sort of the start of the haka when the All Blacks were trying to do that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened. Obviously, usually when there's like a death or something, an announcement is made or something is on the screen that does that, and that's one thing. And then obviously during the haka, I think because the prayer did, like threw the timing off, the haka then obviously started a bit later, and then the whole like plane flying over and playing Sister Bettina and all that sort of stuff happened now during the haka, and obviously that was a bit of an issue. And SA Rugby, to their credit, did apologize to it, threw the poor sound engineer under the bus. But yeah, hopefully no harm, no foul, and things will be sorted out for next week. But yeah, there's a bit of haka controversy this weekend.
Yeah, I really thought it was piss poor. Like, I completely understand about the aeroplane. Like, that doesn't bother me at all. It's the fact that there were fireworks and the DJ, he was shouting on the mic at one stage and then the music came on. So that was just piss poor for me. Cool. Maybe the fireworks are on a timer too. I don't see how you're not going to have the opportunity to override that just because of what fireworks are. And the music, I'm sure, could have been stopped. So yeah, not ideal. But all seems decent. John Smith came out; he wasn't happy with it. But
Mm,
like when I talk about like what the All Blacks and rugby matches bring out the shitty people, it was a shit show on social media. Just people saying it's shit and we shouldn't respect them and blah blah blah. It's what's a load of cuck. Like those aren't rugby fans. The huck has been around forever and it is what it is. And I think every single rugby player that plays the All Blacks wants to see the haka. So it's not
yeah,
going anywhere. And it was amazing. But, they sent, not only did they do a presser, but they also sent a letter, as they say, or an email to NZRU and just apologizing for it. So it's all good. We'll move on. But I agree, it could have been done a lot better.
yeah. Yeah, Sean, and then very quickly, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to really comment on this, but just know that the Pacific Nations Championship is also happening now. Canada's playing terribly; they look like the worst team, but they were beaten by the United States. Samoa thrashed Tonga quite convincingly. We're going to see how that goes over the next few weeks. Springboks are causing havoc in the Curry Cup. Mapimpi scored a hat trick in like 20 minutes. Um, yeah, we had I think Mani Lebok coming back into the Western Province. Unfortunately for him, not quite as much havoc. He was, I think, got 2 out of 5 of his kicks. But yeah, it seems like now we're getting to the URC squads coming into the Curry Cup phase of the competition. So yeah, we'll see now how that goes. And yeah, some preseason is starting to pop up for the European season. So there's a few games over the weekend. I think Bordeaux played Leinster, Munster played Bath, and there were some other games happening over the weekend. So we're going to basically get back into, weekends of like 18 matches a weekend very, very soon. Sean, anything you want to either shout out or say sort of finally? I think I have one sort of big shout out I want to make at the end.
Yeah, I mine is to Cooks, but I think that's what you're going to say. And yeah, that's really it. Just thinking of you, my man.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, thank you for reminding me. Then there's two shout outs I wanted to make. But yeah, to our brother Cooks, who lost his mother, I think in the last few days. Yeah, just our condolences to him and just all love from the Rugby Bits family. And yeah, just hope also that other followers can also just send their love to him and, prayers and yeah, however you can support him at this time. Obviously, just yeah, like a very unfortunate and tragic thing, losing a parent. And yeah, we just obviously for that reason he won't be on the pod for the next few weeks or so. And but he's obviously got our support. The good news is that you are, or I guess the bad news, depending on perspective, is that you're stuck with myself and Sean probably for the next few weeks. But we'll try to make it as fun as possible. Sean, between one of us, we have to go on a few rants, I think, in these next few podcasts.
Yes, we have to. There's no shitty kickoff times, so we'll have to find something. We'll have to make something up.
Yeah. Well, the Dragons are playing soon, so we can sort of
And no,
continue
didn't
that.
he make? Didn't he make good with the Dragons? So we're not playing the Wallabies. We're not playing shitty times. So yeah, we're gonna have to go to the URC to find some anger. Maybe we're just gonna start a URC feud with him and some other team. We haven't decided who yet, but we'll hold your thumbs. It's not you.
Yeah. So Cooks, yeah, your gift or our gift for you will be you'll have a new fan base that is hating you after the next for the next few seasons. And then the other thing I was going to shout out was really big shout out to Sia Kolisi's post match presser or post match
Oof.
interview that he did, and yeah, I think it's just really I think obviously like these players are getting older, so you realize that they're not going to be playing for too much longer. But it's just absolutely special having the Springbok captain make points about gender-based violence, about homelessness during his post-match presser after also getting his cheekbone broken in the game. It's just absolutely special and yeah, just an important. Obviously, Kulisi is one of probably the most popular South African at the moment. He has a voice. He has a platform, and he keeps using it quite well. And yeah, just it's really like more than like the wins and stuff. It's just it makes you really proud as a South African having someone that is speaking about all the social or like a lot of the social ills that we face in this country. And look, it's not easy staying being in this country. Like there's many problems and there's many groups of people that don't yeah, that feel like they're getting the short end of the stick in South Africa for many reasons. So it's just great that, at the end of what is Women's Month in South Africa, that Sia Kolisi was able to make that point in front of the international and national stage as well. And yeah, just his awareness to do that is just really good. And I just take my hat off to him. And yeah, I don't know who's going to be captain. I don't know if they're able to even do a quarter of the things that Sia does in terms of bringing people together. We don't really expect that from them, but geez, yeah, it's like following after like I don't know, like Richie McCaw or something, or Nelson Mandela as a president. It's just not something you'd want to do. But yeah, I think in however many years we have of Kolisi as a Bok captain, yeah, I hope we enjoy it for what the ambassador that he is for this country.
We're gonna miss him.
Yeah. Well, apparently not so much because it seems like a businessman, Vincent Mai, is gonna be able to pay out his exit clause from Racing, so he might be coming to the Sharks soon.
That floated on Saturday morning early, and not one person is other person is reporting on it. So we'll have to wait and see. But if that is happening, that's the best scoop ever.
Yeah, and it doesn't cost SA Rugby an arm and a leg. So I
There
was
will
thinking of
there
the poor.
will be paid back somewhere. Has to be.
Yeah, I was thinking of those poor URC players who are probably looking forward because it's not. I think it's this season they're going to be able to fly first class and everything after slumming it in economy and having their back sort of thrown out by flying to Cardiff. But yeah, that will probably stop if if Sorry had to pay the 17 million release clause.
Sheesh, another 10 years of cattle class.
Don't tell Eben Smith about that. Okay, I think we can end it there. Thank you so much for listening to this Rugby Bits podcast. We will probably do something later in the week when the teams are announced. We hope to get Jamie Wall back. For the podcast as he was here last week. And I think, yeah, if both teams being announced on Thursday, we can obviously react to the teams and see what changes are made, and then sort of preview the game happening this weekend. But yeah, please follow us on our channels on social media to just keep up with any rugby news that's happening, and please follow us on your preferred podcast provider, and yeah, any updates that we have we can give you there as well. And thank you so much for listening. Yeah, we will be back later this week to preview the second test. Bye bye.
Bye.